Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and arrive at episode number 421. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
I'm well.
Pretty good. I thought we shot back in time there for a minute.
Not quite. Did you guys have a good week?
Did have a good week.
Do anything fun?
Mason and I watched Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
How was it?
Man, it's so good. So good. It's a great, fun, enjoyable film. This is how much I liked it. We rented it on iTunes, and immediately after, I purchased it. It was that good. So, liked it. A lot of fun.
Nice.
You guys see anything?
We started watching The Umbrella Academy.
Ooh.
It's okay so far. It's not as bonkers as the trailer makes it look, but it's enjoyable. I'm intrigued enough to keep going. We're 4 episodes in. I'm ready for episode 5, so I'm almost halfway there.
We're only up to episode 2 thus far, but of course Patrick's making us.
Oh, you got to watch it week to week, aren't you?
Week to week.
Yeah.
The Umbrella Academy as a graphic novel is probably my favorite comic iteration of anything
I've never read it. So.
Oh, it's so good. It's just. And I've read it and reread it and reread it and reread it, and every time I come away with it and I appreciate it more, and I find out more things about it, and I find little nuances that just make me fall in love with it all over again. I mean, it's just that good. And I've kind of, when they announced this, it was one of those, oh, this is going to be so great. I hope, because there's very little chance of them being able to do that comic justice.
Right.
And in the 2 episodes I've watched, it's not bad. It's hitting some of the right notes that are, it's nothing that's wrong enough that I'm going to complain about it. So,
that's good.
So there's that.
What else have you been watching, Sean?
I went to the library and picked up a copy of Den of Thieves. This is the last year now, Gerard Butler. It's like Heat, where the guys are pulling a bunch of bank robberies in L.A., and there's the special crimes unit that's trying to track them down and stop them. It's very much Heat. It's like somebody who plays a lot of Grand Theft Auto 5 was like, I'd really like to remake Heat, and did. And it's really long. It's like 2.5 hours.
Oh, it is Heat.
It's Heat. I mean, it's very drawn out, very cat and mouse, very dramatic. And then there's a huge gun battle in the street. I'm like, man, this is Heat. And then you get to the very, 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 very end, and they pull a twist. And it's like...
And Val Kilmer shows up, and Robert De Niro and Al Pacino.
Well...
Wow! It is Heat!
It's a Kaiser Soze level twist that all of a sudden was like, oh, okay, now I don't know if I can use this comparison, because you actually may have elevated yourself above it. The whole movie was just going, you're just trying too hard. No, you're not going to...
Heat until it becomes Usual Suspects.
Yeah, pretty much. It was. I'm still fighting with it, but man, that ending was kind of like, I might have to give you that one.
How was How to Train Your Dragon 3? I don't think you talked about that last week.
It's so good.
Is it?
It's it's rare that you get a trilogy that the third one's just as good as the other 2, live action or otherwise. It's really rare when it's animated, and I feel like it's just as good as the other 2.
I watched Shauna again.
No willpower.
How's the animated version?
So, for anybody that hasn't been watching my Facebook feed, I finally broke down because I wanted the Blu-ray version of Shauna. The silly things on DVD in North America, but they still have not released the Blu-ray here. And after, what has it been, a year? Because it was December of 2017 that it came out in the UK, and then it came out last year on DVD in the US. I wondered how well the animation would work in it. And surprisingly, it works well. It's obviously not seamless because it's live action and animation, but they do a really good job of connecting the two, and they've put a lot of care in making sure that it comes in seamlessly. And I was very, very impressed. It's the same animation company that animated Power of the Daleks. I think they've certainly stepped up their game for this one, although there's arguably much less they had to animate for this story. But it really does. On a certain level, it works pretty seamless. And do you guys remember seeing the clip of Tom now integrated into the story?
Oh, yeah.
The way it's done is actually also seamless and clever. And so I don't want to... Oh, this is going to be a mini review because I don't want to go into it too deep. Perhaps we're not getting a Blu-ray disc here because we will... Maybe they will include it with... What would that be? Seasons, as they call them. Tom Baker Season 6. Because that would have been in that year. So... Or in that era. That
could be.
So
Who
I
knows when
wonder
that's
if
gonna
maybe
happen,
they're
though.
just going to... Well, I don't know. We got 1, and you're getting 7, so there's only 4 more to do in there. So or 5 more to do in there.
Right.
So
I'm just saying, who knows how long that might take.
well, that's true.
Well, that kind of leads into one of our news items.
Yeah, let's go into news. They've announced the extras for the Macra Terror DVDs. So this is Blu-ray and DVD extras include episode reconstructions, audio commentary, a bonus mini episode, a 10-minute animated short built around an otherwise lost Doctor Who episode from 1968 starring Patrick Troughton and Fraser Hines. I have no idea what the story could be, but I'm intrigued. Then, of course, there's typical animatics. On disc 2, there will be a black and white presentation of the animation, so you get color and black and white. 1992 audio presentation, so the BBC Audio Collection version of the Macra Terror. Behind the scenes film, and a couple of other things. And if you get the Steelbook, you get Gridlock and all the bonus features that come with Gridlock.
It's a pretty steelbook.
It is a pretty Steelbook. It is very pretty. And I like the artwork of it, too. It's the same company that did Shada and Power of the Daleks. So, obviously, they're very happy with this company. And they're continuing with them. So...
Now, the reason I say that ties in with this news is because here in the U.S., we haven't got a release date for Macra Terror, have we?
I don't think so. I don't think I have not
No,
seen an
and if
official
they,
announcement even for
If they keep with
North America.
If they keep with the tradition of Shada, in about a year, I'll probably be ordering the Blu-ray from the UK.
Which, well, to what you just said, that makes me wonder if maybe here on this side of the pond, maybe we're done with individual episodic releases because everything's going to be going to season format.
Could be. But they're doing season format over there as well. Although, arguably, Doctor Who sells better. Classic Doctor Who sells better in the UK, so...
Well, if you
bit
believe
annoying.
Amazon, the U.S. release date is October 8th. On DVD only. No announcement of a Blu-ray yet.
Which is what they do with Shada. They waited
Right.
about 8 months and then they released. Which do you guys know? Did BBC One ever play Shada? Not BBC One.
BBC America?
BBC
I
America.
thought they did.
See, I think that's what they're doing. They're hijacking the release schedule of the U.S. version so they can have first run before they release on Blu-ray or DVD, which is annoying because
Well, I'm fine with it from the standpoint that they're treating it as a true multi-platform marketing push and using the oomph of BBC America to kind of go, hey, look at this. But it would make more sense if you then this will be available next week.
right.
And
Right.
I think my thing is what annoys me about it is they're waiting 6 to 8 months because of scheduling, and I think they need to truncate that a little bit. I mean, they know when
That's
it's going
the
to come
annoying
out.
part.
They know when it's going to come out in the UK. I think they need to make some adjustments to their television schedule. Get those if they want to be first run on there in America, do it, but bump it up. Don't make us wait 7 to 8 months.
Especially if you want to try to curtail any pirating.
Exactly.
happening.
Or somebody going to buy now region-free Blu-rays because Blu-rays are now coming out region-free. There's no region lock on Blu-rays anymore. So,
And the reason is because piracy on the physical media disc has become such a non-issue. It's all digital is where the piracy issues are. So,
well, and day and date release has also been thrown out the window, and movie release dates or that whole
the
movie
shrinking windows.
Yeah,
and-
the shrinking windows of foreign versus domestic, and that's all happened to it too.
You know what I'm most excited about with this is the fact that with you know how I was all twitchy about this cover. It doesn't match the rest of the line now. It's pretty much given me carte blanche to go ahead and just buy the steelbook because it's like, well, if you're not going to try, I'm not going to either.
Yeah. No, that's that's a good way to look at it, Sean.
It's true.
Because it's either that or I ask you to mock one up for me.
Which I don't mind doing.
I might have you do it anyway. Just put a slipcover over it that looks like the rest of it, and then pull off and go, ooh, steelbook. Surprise.
And that's it for news. That's all we got this
Not
week.
a lot going on.
No, there really isn't.
Oh, I didn't mention that I picked up Peter Davison on DVD too, or on Blu-ray,
Blu-ray
as well too.
Did you? Nice.
Yep. So we need to get maybe some Blu-ray reviews on the schedule soon.
Might have to do that.
I wonder if we've got that in the works.
Mayhap.
Mayhap.
Is that really all the news?
That's all I had.
I don't doubt you, but I kind of doubt you.
Well, let's move on to feedback.
First up in feedback, Jamie.
Jamie writes, hello, Vortexers. Thank you, Glenn, for your reply in length. Still, don't mind the longer episodes, but it's understandable. I think that the sheer number of episodes these days might make people hesitant, and yes, family-friendly is what I mean. So this time I'm starting with episode 62. This is your coverage of Sarah Jane Series 1.
I suppose we should preface this with saying we accidentally skipped this last week. This should have been read out last week, and we got a little out of order.
We
That's
got
my
one
fault.
ahead last week,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
this is the previous week's.
This is why it seems like we're slipping backwards even further in time.
Now we're traveling backwards.
Coverage of Sarah Jane Series 1. I've never seen that series, so I really can't comment on it. I'm kind of stayed away from it because it's very much a children's show. I know Doctor Who's considered one as well, but this one's even more so. Moving on to episode 63. Your discussion on Bond. Don't you know? James Bond is a Time Lord. There have been 7 so far. They can recast 6 more. Kidding aside, I'm not a huge Bond fan. From what I hear, the arc that carries through all of Daniel Craig's Bond films makes Quantum of Solace a bit more bearable. No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. Something to think about. Maybe Sean and Glenn should make a James Bond 101 side trip similar to the Star Trek 101 side trips you did. Ooh.
That'd be fun. I
a
would
good
be.
idea.
I'd be up for that.
I'd be down for that. Up for that, down for that.
That seems about right. Yeah.
Next, he's going to be left for it, and then right for it.
Thumbs up, thumbs down. Based on your comments, I don't think I've actually seen Attack of the Cybermen. I look forward to watching it when I get through my watch through. It looks like one of the better ones. I might also listen to the first season of Lost Stories and then the Sixth Doctor and Evelyn arc before Trial of a Time Lord. The Sixth Doctor is one where I've seen a few, but it's been so long I remember little. Despite having seen over half his TV run, surprisingly, when looking at the list of his serials, my main exposure to it has been through Big Finish. I don't mind Silver Nemesis. I understand why people don't like it, but it wasn't horrible. Maybe I'm just more forgiving than some. I thought there was more going on between the Doctor and Lady Pinafore than what actually made it on screen. And Silver Nemesis is one that sprinkles hints of the Cartmel master plan through it. A lot of what Cartmel wanted in it was removed through script writing, editing, and so on by J&T. If I remember correctly, this was supposed to bring up the question, Doctor Who? And I think that hurts the story the most with it not being there. Could the Validium show up in the Time War? That might be cool. Yeah. Lady Fancy Pants' mode of making it to the present is actually the work of Fenric, as is the time storm that took Ace to Iceworld in Dragonfire. I agree that Seven and Ace is one of my favorite pairings. The scene you guys mention about blowing up the spaceship is an excellent example. I don't suppose you've completely ignored my instructions and secretly prepared any Nitro 9, have you? What if I had? And naturally you wouldn't do anything so insanely dangerous as to carry it around with you, would you? Of course not. I'm a good girl. I do what I'm told. Excellent. Blow up that vehicle. It just oozes fun. One of you, I think it was Glenn, mentioned that they don't like the Seventh Doctor's version of the main theme. Sorry, but the Seventh Doctor's version and the version that played during Series 4 and the specials are my favorite. Episode 64. Yay, more Big Finish. I just happened to watch the newest, at the time of writing, episode of TARDIS Sauce on Big Finish. For me, I can't sit in a chair and listen. Like Keith, my mind wanders. So yeah, I'll listen while driving, doing dishes, vacuuming, mowing the lawn, etc. I think that apart from the sheer number of available titles, the biggest thing keeping people away from Big Finish is the cost. Fans of shows and franchises tend to be completists. This is why they want to buy every issue or DVD or Blu-ray set or book or film. I've just calculated it, and to get the download versions of each release of the Doctor Who main range from Big Finish, all 247 of them, would I don't know that I want to read this number, would cost a person $2,208.53. The Companion Chronicles range downloads versions, 85 releases currently, would cost $749.20. So just 2 out of 30 Doctor Who related ranges, and for download only, and you're already shelling out nearly $3,000. Your barbershop quartet at the beginning of the episode, or would it be a trio, sounded rather good. However, when you were trying to pick a song, you missed the Doctor Who option, Chattanooga Choo Choo, as seen in Shada. However, you included the Beatles, so that worked. Minuet in Hell. I really wish that the 8th Doctor had gotten better audio stories with the Brigadier than this and Zagreus. And Zagreus is more Paul McGann and Nicholas Courtney than 8 and Brig. There's some good ideas in here. However, the 8th Doctor getting amnesia has already been done multiple times in the BBC novel line. The American accents are exaggerated caricatures. I'm not a fan of the Demons from Hell storyline, despite what they turned out to be, and the whole thing seems rushed. I want to say that this was a rush writing job that had to fill a place of another story, but I'm not certain. I just didn't like it. Invaders from Mars. I enjoyed this one. I've listened to the audiobook of War of the Worlds and enjoyed it. I found that this was just a fun story. It really sounds like McGann is having fun on this one. I think this is where he finally hit his stride as the 8th Doctor on audio. There's elements in the story that don't match up with established history, and on first listen, you don't notice them or just think that they're minor errors that editing missed. But as you progress through the 8 Charlie arc, Storm Warning through Zagreus, you find that they're purposely stuck in there. Chimes of Midnight. I really, really like this one. It's a fun mystery, a nice Christmas special, gives us a good background on Charlie. It's very atmospheric. McGann takes a bit of a back seat here, but plays the quiet, subdued Doctor well, especially after the fun romp he had in the previous story. The writer of this is Robert Sherman, who gave us the Holy Terror, Jubilee, and... what's that word again?
Scherzo?
That one.
Scherzo.
Scherzo. I cannot say that. From Big Finish, and then Dalek on TV. I have found his stories to be enjoyable on a surface level, and then they get quite deep the more you think about them on a second or third listen. On a side note, he also played the Merca in Blood Tide. Did not know that. Having followed the 8th Doctor through all of his audio adventures, I really feel that not getting a TV series is almost an injustice. However, I've really enjoyed his audio adventures for the most part. He's definitely one of my favorite incarnations. I really enjoy the Aztecs as a story. I think it would be great to return to the Aztecs during the Spanish conquest and meet the Cortes. What are your thoughts on this? Which Doctor Companion team would be best for this? Also, if you could choose one of the period event person in Earth's past, anytime in Earth's history prior to 2018, for each Doctor to visit, what would it be? Are there any companions who you would like to see paired with a different incarnation of the Doctor from their main incarnation? We actually talked about that in a previous episode that you're not quite to yet, Jamie. And finally, suggestion for an upcoming episode, maybe 450 or 500, as part of your 10th anniversary year, would be to go back along your old episodes and maybe create a best of episode. I think that would be fun. That's all I've got for now. Only 352s left at this point. Keep up the great work. Great show, Jamie.
I think since Jamie's going through, he should give us a best of.
Recommendations.
We'll take a
of
week
what
off.
clips to-
No, he just makes it together.
Just him
Clip them
cut it
together.
together.
And it'll be like when Lucille Ball came on Three's Company and did a clip show. Jamie could be the Lucille Ball comes in and
There
sets
you
up
go.
all the clips and then plays them.
We'll just call it Shades of Grey.
There you go.
The three of us lie in a coma, and we're going back over the last 7-10 years of our show. Remember when this happened? Wasn't that great?
Next up in feedback, William. William writes, Traveling the Vortex, episode 405, podcasting with Don Quixote feedback. Hello, Glenn,
Boy,
Sean, and
wow.
Keith.
Is he just getting to that, or did we?
No, he's
Did
just
we
getting
lose
to
this?
it.
Did we lose this in
We
the
just got it
Vortex?
Wednesday.
Okay,
so.
good.
41 minutes and 55 seconds into episode 405, podcasting with Don Quixote. Glenn remarks, In these kinds of stories, is there any room for the Doctor to be a superhero? I mean, that's what you're looking for, but I think when you make the Doctor a superhero, that we got with the previous Doctors, and you don't get a chance for Yaz to ask intelligent questions. You don't get a chance to develop side relationships and stories as much, and I think maybe that's what's happening. That shift has come off the Doctor being the greatest hero of all time every week, like we are getting sometimes in the past, and that's taking a side seat to better development of the characters in the story surrounding it. I totally agree with Glenn. Just after I began...
I was about to say, did I say that or was it Sean? But no, I totally said it.
No, you totally said that.
If he agrees with if he agrees, then I...
It sounded
I totally
positive, so it had to have been you.
That's true.
I didn't say that.
Just after I began traveling the Vortex with you guys, there were moments of, here we go again, when the Prince of Potholes, a.k.a. Sean, identified what he didn't like about an episode. It's become a running gag to ask Sean what he hates about whatever is being reviewed, and at times, he's without a doubt a grumpy old man. But then, so am I. So please make room and move over, because while I can overlook minor plot holes, others that are big enough to park the TARDIS in aren't so easily ignored. Sean, I'm with you on most of Series 11 inconsistencies you pointed out.
There's plenty of room on the porch. We can yell at the kids to get off our lawn.
I discovered Traveling the Vortex while test driving a bunch of other podcasts. Some are very structured, some not so much, and while what I'm about to say does not describe yours, three trends that convince me to stop listening, no matter how organized or polished a podcast may seem, are: 1. Hosts are making baseless, crazy predictions about Doctor Who. Well, if you go back far enough.
For the love of God, do not go back to the back catalog.
Maybe he means...
Although those weren't some of those weren't baseless.
Maybe he means consistent.
There you go. 2. Hearing one host's computer keystrokes as they Google for content while another host vamps or stalls. And 3.
Oh, we outright say we're doing it.
For the love of God, do not go back.
We're going to Google that.
Flat and boring rush to judgment reviews that are amongst the first to be released because speed is more important than substance.
No, that's never been us.
No.
As in never us. I understand how
Slow and steady wins the race.
I understand how podcast producers get caught up in the moment with enthusiasm for new TV episodes. As a podcast listener, I can pick and choose which ones I let inside my head, but I don't have that option when it comes to the franchise proper because there's only one. Die-hard Whovians wait out hiatus after hiatus, like waiting for Christmas or a similar event. Anticipation of such an event often is as exciting as the event itself, and when it's not what we hoped for, we feel cheated, denied a reward for our patience and loyalty. But hey, it's only a TV show after all. Such sacrilege. In the first 2 full years of Classic Who, its annual run time was 1,125 minutes. 45 25-minute episodes per year, whereas in 2018, 10 episodes made for a total of 511 minutes. In terms of runtime, Classic Who more than doubles New Who, and Classic did it on a frayed shoestring budget. All of this is to say that Doctor Who isn't the production machine it once was, nor is it a crowd-funded direct-to-digital download series staged by amateurs. It doesn't have a big budget, but it takes itself seriously and has state-of-the-art production values. Unlike a prop, a costume, or a set, continuity is an intangible yet visible production value. In the olden days, continuity at it was a costly luxury. Nowadays, I'd imagine you can do that same job with a desktop computer using pocket-sized portable drives, which is to say there's no comparing Classic and New Who on some levels. Smartphones have probably replaced digital film and instant print cameras. Paper notepads, sketchpads, and other archaic tools once used for character continuity in terms of makeup, hair, and costume. That being said, tools don't ensure continuity. People do. The human element can make fiction plausible, suspend disbelief, permit entry into fantasy, and then promptly destroy it. Wonderfully creative minds construct episodic portals through which we escape this reality, to explore others where fantastic adventures, compelling commentary, and worlds of what if await us. Yet one continuity rough ruins the illusion. It seems scene and plot continuity aren't given the same attention as character continuity. Why? Is there a team whose job it is to call out continuity errors? Is such a daunting task just left to one individual? Inquiring minds want to know. Several sets of eyes may preview Doctor Who episodes before transmission, but ultimately its showrunner is responsible for the good, the bad, and the WTF. Because Chris Chibnall delivered a set of episodes that were unlike what most Whovians expected, he became a scapegoat for sorts for all that is wrong with Doctor Who. But how much of the remake was his doing, and how much was at the insistence of the BBC? Because I don't know the answer to this, I'm willing to cut Mr. Chibnall a break as I look forward to Series 12. Despite its faults and flaws, Series 11 gave us a number of exceptional stories and moments that will stand the test of time. My apologies for the lengthy first contact email. Elsewhere in the Whoniverse, my handle is BlueBoxBill. And with that, I bid you happy travels as I continue my ride through the Vortex with your podcasts. P.S. Should you read this into an upcoming episode of your podcast, we would like to keep it suitable for all audiences. Be advised that the WTF stands for Why That Frog? Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, that's going to be my new
WTF.
acronym. Why that frog? I like it.
I want you to imagine that GIF of from Citizen Kane of the clapping, because that's what I'm doing right now, Bill.
Oh, good.
Thank you for the email. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for sending that to us. That's it for feedback.
All right. Well, let's move on to our review.
Did you happen to notice on one of his stats, Keith, the how many hours of Doctor Who there were produced?
I did.
There were 45. Just saying.
All right, so 45, an anthology. The first story, False Gods. In the blistering heat of the Egyptian desert, Howard Carter and his team search for the tomb of... the word typed out is user hat, but that is not how they pronounced it.
Let me give this a try. Scarab, beetle, pyramid, upside down... yeah, I don't know.
A servant of the god Amun. What they discover sheds new light on the history of the world as we know it.
This one was fine.
I thought this was okay. Yeah,
I really enjoyed it. I just thought it ended too quickly.
Like,
partially because I didn't know it was an anthology.
I agree. When it wrapped up, and I thought, okay, well that one's over. Wait a minute, is this an anthology piece? Sure enough, the next one started, and yeah, we were off on another story.
But there was so much richness to the story that I felt like they could have really expounded on it and explored it, especially with Jane. And we get the reveal that Jane is a time lady. And then all of a sudden she's, flying her TARDIS into the sun and she's gone. It's like almost a blink of an eye and you miss it. And you get so much setup and it doesn't feel like we get to explore the meat of the story enough.
I had sort of wondered if we were going to get her showing up sometime down in the future and finding out that she may be... Because the implication was that she was going to do it because she had to dump this thing because it was leaking and it was in bad shape, and he was obviously going to swoop in, rescue her, or materialize in there and take her out just before it crashed into the sun. But she starts what I want to call her suicide note conversation with him about if she goes back, will she, she'll have to face punishment, and it's going to be a pretty extreme punishment. And he says yes, and I sort of wondered if at that point maybe she did something, because it obviously goes into the sun, because they discuss that, but she did something that maybe at the last minute allowed her to escape and she could come back. Because again, I thought the character was an intriguing rogue character situation where it wasn't exactly her fault.
No, what a cool idea that these
Yeah.
are students that accidentally got stranded and had
So,
to
and
deal with
unfortunately,
it.
because they broke some rules with time in order
Right.
to
Survive.
blend in and
I mean,
survive,
yeah.
I think that if she had gone back to Gallifrey, I would hope, although knowing the Time Lords and the Council, they probably wouldn't have, but I would have hoped at least the Doctor could have interceded for her and been able to get her lesson sentences. But I also like, as you said, I felt like the character, the richness of the character was lending to something bigger. And so I think that's why in the back of my mind, it's sort of nagging me that maybe this woman could show up again.
Right.
I did a little scooting ahead, and I didn't see anything that indicates that she's coming back.
Nothing on TARDIS Wiki, unfortunately.
But we still have, Big Finish Main Range coming out. So,
Who knows?
Big Finish, if you're listening, we'd like to see you get her out of that situation and see if we can bring her back and explore
All those
her
box
character
sets
more.
and companion chronicles and other things that you've got planned, this one would be one that would be all right.
Right.
Now, perhaps I'm wrong. You took it as a legit suicide at the end, that she... I kind of took it that she rabbited, that she was going to escape.
That was my point. Was the way it's sort of set up? He says she's running, and so I thought, oh, she's going to fly off and escape.
That's what I thought was going to happen
But
initially.
then-
The TARDIS, just because it was old and broken down and that she couldn't control it and crashed into the
Oh,
sun.
so you think
so
it
you
was
don't think-
accidental? Okay, I can see
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah,
can see that as well.
too, yeah.
But I got the impression that she broke off from his because they were flying in tandem, but she broke away from him.
Right.
And that's when I thought she was going to take off and do a runner. But
So,
what led me to believe that she took herself on into the sun instead of allowing him to retrieve her was the fact that she started questioning what the consequences would be. And I think she felt that her death with this TARDIS in this sun would have been preferable to whatever the sentence would have been that the Time Lords would have given her. So that's why I went that way. But I am open to the idea that maybe perhaps she was going to do a runner, but things went awry and she wasn't able to control the TARDIS
Gotcha.
and went
Okay.
on in. So.
I think that's the nice way of the way they wrote it, is it's open to interpretation. You can see it either way. Either she was trying to make a runner and things went wrong, or she sacrificed herself to make sure things go right. Because it is a bit of a bootstrap paradox a little bit, too.
Yeah. She very much became a piece of her own
Right.
future.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think that the one thing that I let them get away with in this story is the whole. Well, the Doctor will have to go back and write the hieroglyphs later, and they
Yeah.
leave it. And it seems like the first time you see that device used in Doctor Who, it's actually a funny, haha. Okay, that's clever.
And then it becomes a crutch.
It becomes a crutch, and and even if they aren't using it as a crutch, in this situation, I almost give it a pass because they are building just a 30-minute story.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, when you continue to use that, then it goes into that whole Bill and Ted joke about going, into the future. and
Remind me to go back
remind
in
me to
time
go
and steal
back
my
and
dad's
steal my
keys.
dead keys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Remind me to get the trash can. So it becomes that to a point in Doctor Who. And so, like I said, I gave them a pass in this one, but I just don't like when they do that.
I was also slightly disappointed that, we get this god no one's ever heard of time, or whatever they called her. And obviously that's not a real Egyptian god. And I was kind of disappointed that it wasn't like they needed to go back and fix it so that that god never actually happened. But as it is, it should still be there in Earth history. And this just doesn't quite sit well enough with me. I think that's part of that's something they could have explored and dealt with if they would have been a longer story.
It also deals with gods that are not Sutek and
Yeah, non-Osiris gods.
right, not Osiris
Yeah.
gods. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they kind of shoved that aside.
Yeah.
And is Carter really going to go ahead and continue to look for
I think he actually was the guy who found Tutankhamun, though.
right, but is he going to continue to look now that he's been in the TARDIS?
Oh, I see
mean,
what you're saying.
you know.
Yeah.
Why
He almost needs his mind wiped or
why
something.
am I going to dig up dead guys from the past when this is going
When
on?
I could, yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of holes that are left from a 30-minute format. I agree. I wanted more from this, and I think the nuggets were there. And I understand, the limitations of the format, and that's why it was an all right story. I don't know that it would have worked as a full-blown 2-hour, but I think an hour-long story, you really could have done just a little bit more with it and worked some of those themes and some of those characters a little bit. And I agree with you. I think that the meat of it was, what's her name?
Jane.
I don't know why I can't remember Jane. I would have liked a scene where, I don't know, something sciencey has to happen while they're fixing the TARDIS, and the companions go run off to fix coffee, and the Doctor and Jane get to have a real heart-to-heart where, she's talking about the pressures of Gallifrey and, getting out on our first field assignment and what it was like and her hopes and dreams. And then this was the first chance.
Right.
And they crashed, and now she's stuck here, and all her hopes and dreams went up and evaporated, and the Doctor's maybe relaying some of his stuff, and I wanted that moment.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately,
get there.
You really couldn't do that unless you took this story out of this set, because they were going to do an anthology set. They'd done one for the Fifth Doctor, they'd done one for the Sixth Doctor, and in this format where they had 4 different stories, this was their turn to do the Seventh Doctor.
Well, and this was specifically done the 45 for the 45th anniversary.
Yeah.
Right. So that makes sense as well. And
apparently they got some
mind.
big cast, although I don't know how big he was at the time. Howard Carter, who did his voice?
No idea who that is.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Huh, I'll be darned.
I didn't know that until just looking at the TARDIS wiki.
Huh.
So fun story. I knew Benedict was in this audio, and I was like, oh, yeah. And I listened to it. He's another voice in the next story.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. And I went and looked it up, and I went, oh. And I was so disappointed. And I thought, this must have been really early. That was all that there was to it. And I didn't realize that he was Carter at the time I was listening to it. And then I went back and thought, oh, yeah, okay, yeah,
So who's the voice in the second story?
He's one of the things locked in the third bedroom on the third
floor.
One of the Frankenstein zombies
okay.
going, ugh. It's like, really?
Okay, all right.
Well, if you got him there already.
You've got Smaug locked up in the bedroom in the attic.
Well, let's move on to Order of Simplicity.
Let's move on to Benedict Cumberbatch's second story.
Dr. Verryman has devoted his life to the advancement of knowledge. When his experiments on a remote planet threaten the entire human race, only the Doctor can help, if he puts his mind to it.
I want to give this one a bump on setting alone, just because it screamed Brain of Morbius.
Oh yeah,
it was just even Ferryman was kind of like, that kind of sounds like Solomon, just the way his cadence and the mannerisms and everything. And then we got into the plot, and it was, it's another computer virus. Okay, don't worry about it. Just let it go. It makes people dumb. Really? Okay. Oh, the Doctor's got this reverse Forbidden Planet krill machine that's going to boost his intellect, and he's been using it nonstop. Okay. And there's Frankenstein monsters in the attic. Okay. It just kind of kept getting weirder and weirder and weirder as it went on. Almost like it couldn't decide which horror story it was going to spoof. And it fixed itself a little bit when Mrs. Crisp finally reveals that the order of the
that's where I felt like it went completely south.
Savage.
I was buying into everything, even
Really?
even the over the top nature of the Doctor. I get what was the professor's name? Yeah, Ferryman.
Ferryman. I liked that.
I was buying into it, and I was just like, okay, this is weird where they're going with this, and I was kind of like you going, okay, but when it reveals that. The big reveal of her, I thought, okay, you guys, you really were on the verge of going over the top, but then it was like, how close can we get before we actually do it? And that's where I felt like it went, okay, the story went south now, because I thought that was just a little bit weak and lame, but
It was like that reveal. I feel like it fixed the plot element of the story.
It gave cadence to everything,
but it
credence rather.
Yeah, but it kind of, well, now it's not fun anymore, and it's certainly not bonkers, and it felt like almost a farce, but now it's not, and I'm not sure. And then the crazy doctor who transmitted this virus out into the world, and he survives. He makes it at the end of the day.
Right.
And like he's best buds with the doc, and they're walking out going, no. It's like, I don't know about that one.
And it felt like the resolution was not very clearly conveyed either, other than they made it go boom.
Yeah. I think it was wrapped up a little too nicely with a bow. I really probably should have liked this, because it really felt like a B-movie plot is what it felt like.
Yeah.
But just, it just, and again, I was kind of just there along for the ride until they turned it and gave it some explanation, and then it was like, okay, this kind of went south at that point. But I agree with you. I don't think it felt like it had a solid resolution.
Yeah. It just felt like it kind of, they destroyed the thing, and then that's it. Whereas the last one, I wish there was more of. This one, I was glad it was only 30 minutes. I don't think I would have liked even more of it. It was,
Next.
This is where I caught the first reference of 45, and it wasn't until I was talking to Keith last week that he reminded me where the reference was in the first one, was the 45 little figures. And I remembered the IQ
drops the IQ to 45.
So. So that's where I picked up and went, okay, there's the first instant of 45. This must be going to be a theme.
And then it became a game.
That was as far, that's as far as I had listened. And so when we talked about the 45 connection in the first one, then I was like, okay, now it's a game. I'm listening for them.
I noticed right off the bat because knowing that it was called 45, when there's 45 figures, I went, oh, okay. And then that didn't really go anywhere, and I was like, oh, well, that's just that's the convenient hook for the theme of this.
So there was only 44.
That's the convenient hook for the theme. And then they did it here, and I was like, oh, okay, there's there it is again. And then in the third one, and I was kind of all set to just go, oh, well, that's just
what's going on.
That's just the name of the thing. But then they do bring it around in the...
Oh, they really brought it around the last one, but we'll get there.
I didn't catch half of them in that one.
No, there's too many. Casualties of war. Opportunity knocks in post-war London, but when a tea leaf steals from the wrong woman, it becomes a race against time to discover the truth. Only some truths are best left untold.
Bum, bum, bum! I like this one a lot.
I quite enjoyed this one.
This one was pretty good.
Such a heart-tugging ending, too, I thought.
Yeah.
Nicely done. Nicely placed.
And that's what the strength of this is doing the continuity to Ace's family.
Yeah.
That's where the big strength and the big heart is also. The overall plot of, this guy coming across some forge technology was a nice tie-in to previous stories, and, a nice little plot to get you through it. But, it was enjoyable.
I really kind of thought that the guy was going to be a little more... I thought there was going to be more to this guy until it's revealed that he's just really kind of... He's a petty thief that found this device and really ended up in a situation of control that he didn't really have control of. So I was pleased to know that this wasn't some, extraterrestrial that's come to Earth that's using technology. I thought it was nice to learn that he's this average guy that happened to come across this stuff that he got his hands on. So I thought that was a nice element to it too.
And it was cool to bring the Forge back as proper villains, that they're still out there in some way, shape, or form, and
wreaking havoc,
doing what they do well. This is another one that I felt like I'd have been okay if this had been an hour long. that it would have been nice to have more interplay between Ace and her family.
One where I thought it was just the right length. I thought there was enough story and plot for only 30 minutes. I didn't feel like anything was rushed at all. I didn't feel like anything was dragged out to try to get it longer. And I think if we went an hour, things would have felt dragged out too much.
I don't know. I think because for me the magic of it is the handful of scenes where Ace and her mother are together. But there's only like what, 2.
But
see, and I think that's the magic
that
of
was
it.
the
Is
balance.
there is
yeah,
only
I
a
think
little
you
bit.
could have overdone it. You certainly could have overdone it,
Especially on the heels of, well, I mean, distant heels, but after Fenric, I mean, it's revisiting her as an older child than she was in Fenric. So it's kind of, you'd only want a little bit of interaction there as opposed to, it being heavy-handed and Ace having a big influence on her mother before she was ever born. And that would have been, I think, too much.
Yeah.
And I like you guys said about the guy that stole the stuff. I like the fact that it wasn't some big alien influence in Ace's family history, that it wasn't some, meddling that she was always destined to be a part of the Doctor, that it just kind of happened to be, this weird thing that was going on that didn't really, nothing focused on her at all.
Nice change of pace for...
Yes.
It really was, yeah.
Because you can
They
imagine...
didn't go Moffat with it.
Right. When she walked in the room, it was like, oh... As if to, why is it always got to be this? And then to come to find out, oh no, it's not about you at all. What did you think about the Doctor's not revelation with Hex?
That he didn't get around to saying what he was going to say, that there's more there? Yeah. I thought that was interesting that they went and brought it to that point, because I kind of thought, okay, here we're going to get some information that's going on, and then they pulled back from it, and I thought, wow, okay, we have to wait a little bit longer on the Hex reveal or the information that the Doctor knows about him.
So when Hex asks him, he says, you were lying, weren't you? But how were you able to do that with that was just a Time Lord trick. Is Hex completely just giving the Doctor a convenient out, going, yeah, yep, right, totally.
Oh, I think so.
Or is there something to it where he was like, well, no, I was going to say this, but yes, I was going to lie about this? Was he able to... Is there a certain amount of truth maybe to...
I got the impression from the Doctor's performance that he was just letting Hex believe that he was going to lie.
Yes, exactly. That's the way I took it as
I think so too, but sometimes it's best not to say anything.
And how does... I've just also found it really hard to believe that Hex didn't know what VE Day was.
Or, yeah, I kind of thought so too.
It felt like we got to explain it just in case there's a kid listening who hasn't learned this yet.
'Cause he's pretty contemporary. He's not from far future or anything. So
He's from future, but not far future.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's not far future where it'd be long enough that
2021.
Yeah, they wouldn't have. I just
I have a hard time believing they still wouldn't
23rd,
believe it.
24th century. I could see them that the further away you get from it, the further away you get away from remembering exact years or dates, or even things that it's referred to as, like VE Day or VJ Day or D Day or things like that. So I think that if he had been from far future, I could excuse it, but I agree with him being more contemporary future. I just didn't feel like
2021 was when he met the Doctor. He was born in 98, according to TARDIS Wiki.
Well, still, but he
was a millennial. That totally explains
no,
it.
In theory,
born in 98, you're not a millennial.
In theory, there's kids out there, learning this now, and they're still learning about VE Day.
Yeah, especially if he didn't remember something that was maybe a foreign word to him.
I could understand him not understanding the dates.
That's on his soil, that was recent for them. So
at least knowing the phrase what VE Day stood for, not necessarily knowing, it's this date. I didn't know the date until they said it was VE Day. Oh, okay, now I know what you're talking about.
Right.
But the fact that he didn't even know what VE Day was in addition to the date just seemed too big of a pill to swallow. And it's a nitpicky thing, but he's a smart dude too.
I can kind of very easily see that one, just from the standpoint that at least here, American history is taught in 2 semesters, and we kind of like, okay, Columbus discovers the continent, and you go all the way up to the Civil War. That's one.
Yeah.
And then from
And
the
then it's
Civil
a
War
mad
to
rush.
how far can we get?
Yeah.
Right.
And you don't always get very far.
And as we continue to add history to, I think we only got up to Kennedy when I was in high school. So that's only another 10 years beyond VE Day. And as we continue to add history on it.
I bet if you ask kids in the U.S. what VJ Day was, they might not know what it is. They would not know it's Victory Japan
Probably.
Day. So they certainly wouldn't know the date.
No, yeah, definitely not.
But I think they may not know the moniker of it. They might know the significance of it, but I don't think they would maybe necessarily associate, especially since we don't look at calendars like we used to.
Yeah, that's
when
true.
I was young, calendars had those printed on there. Now we use digital calendars that may or may not have, holiday information or significant days printed on them. So that maybe is something as well. Yeah, maybe that. But I mean, so they might know the significance of the events that happened,
right?
But they aren't
not
necessarily
the
going
day
to know
itself.
the label for it. So.
And he focused on medicine, so didn't need history.
All right. Well, let's move on to the Word Lord. In a top-secret military bunker deep beneath the Antarctic ice, a mysterious death threatens peace negotiations and can spell a disaster for the inhabitants of Earth. Can the Doctor cross the T's and dot the I's, or will his efforts get lost in translation?
This was my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was my absolute favorite. I thought this was very cleverly written. This was, again, I think so well done for the 30-minute format. This is one that left me wanting more. Fortunately, spoilers, we're going to get more. And a good thing we came back and grabbed this one because it's not far down the road. So I really, really liked the concept of an interdimensional being that is able to use language in order to wait a minute, we've done that before, to come across into our dimension. I thought was really clever, and I thought the way that they did it, him naming himself nobody no one, or was it, you could have flip-flopped nobody no one. Yeah. So either way that you used his name in a phrase of no one can come in here or nobody can get through that door,
Right.
It working both ways, I thought was very, very clever. I liked the infiltration because of the language and because of that, particularly that one joke that did get him. That was kind of the nexus point for it. I thought was really, really clever. A bunch of delegates at the South Pole. They did explain that a little bit, and I think it's sort of. I felt like they were trying to connect it to something in Classic Who, but you guys are giving me weird looks. So,
well, I think they were through Clara, whoever the woman.
Claire.
Oh, that was
Claire.
the other thing that I thought was really cool is that she shows up and says she knows him.
Yeah.
But I didn't get a chance to do the research to figure out which character she was supposed to be. I'm assuming it was
According to
Battlefield.
According to TARDIS Wiki,
She's
it's
not. Yeah,
She's not.
No, she's not connected.
Yeah, really cool ideas. I like the idea of nobody, no one, and how he was able to infiltrate, and how they were able to trap him also into the book, and then of course he gets free. But I just really enjoyed the story.
This is not only was this a fun story, and so I don't want to say puzzle box, but it was just as it starts off innocently enough. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're in this military facility, and you're thinking base under siege, and then it is, but it's not. It's a base under siege story, unlike one that you're normally told. And then when he shows up, and you're like, "Ooh, how is this going to work?" And then he kills a bunch of people in the TARDIS, and you're like, "Whoa, how does that?" And then he brings up State of Temporal Grace, but not for me. I'm from another. Oh, I mean, it was just one of those little surprises, one after another, and they kept just peeling these layers back and revealing a little bit more and a little bit more. And so as we got deeper and deeper into the revelations of it, it did remind me, at least on the surface part, of Shakespeare Code, using the language to do it. But it's kind of like, and I hate to pick on it because I enjoyed Shakespeare Code, but this is how to do that story right. This was just a better version of that story, really, because you didn't have to deal with the supernatural elements,
right?
And
or the witches.
It just it's another dimension. Boom, done, and it's like, okay, great, because there's a lot of more science there, and it's just easier and cleaner. I agree. And then to pin him into the book and use the translation circuits, which was another nifty. When they mention it at the beginning, it's just kind of a one-off joke. They want to know why they don't have to use their translators anymore. Oh, that's cute. But then that winds up coming back into play when they reverse it. But then he gets out, and you're just like, oh. Which, of course, I was super excited because I want more of this guy.
I know how I linked this in my head. The comment about future Cold War, the future Cold War. It would have been the second Cold War that was referenced in, that is the events that are happening in Warriors of the Deep. And this, to me, felt like a prelude to where they had gotten to in Warriors of the Deep because of all the delegates, and they're all having to gather because we were on the brink of a second Cold War. That's what I was linking together in my head, was the fact that the war has elevated and has gone into practice or whatever by the time Warriors of the Deep comes about. So that's how I was connecting it. I had to go back and read some of the dialogue again because I know I picked that up somewhere. So
okay, I'll give you that.
The other thing that I thought was really interesting is when the Word Lord materializes in the TARDIS and shoots the other delegate, or shoots the other 5 delegates, and or I think he shot the who?
6
delegates, yeah, and he shot he shot the second in command guy too, and I don't remember who it is that brought up. But my first thought was, well, he can't hurt anybody there because of temporal grace. But then stepping around that, I thought that was really clever how they did that.
It was the moment when the gun goes off, and you're like, oh well, whatever, because that's not going to work. And then Ace is freaking out when we come back, and you just killed. And I was like, oh. So then the next thought is, well, this must be one of those stories in which the Doctor has been lying about temporal grace and that it's not really a thing. But then when he himself says, oh, well, it doesn't apply to me because I'm from outside this universe.
Right. Yeah. That was just like, oh, okay. I thought the same thing. I thought, okay, is this one of these things where they're fudging it because we're not sure the Doctor lies? Like isometric controls.
Well, and there were so many when we're getting the tour of the facility and they're explaining how secure it is and that we wipe everything after so much time and we do this and went on and on and on and on with these security procedures, and you're just like, why do I need to know all this stuff? Well, because we're getting there. This is all going to come back into play later, and then it does. Oh man, this was so cool.
And he did such a good job tying it all back in.
Yeah. So there were no dangling threads. There were no. It is a puzzle box. It's just a nifty little. It's like Time Heist, but.
What else has Stephen Hall written? Have we had anything from him before?
Nothing else yet.
Wow, so more coming.
Nothing else yet that we have reviewed, or he hasn't written anything else yet.
Nothing else that we have reviewed. He's written one other story that we have not got to.
Which one?
Death in the Family.
Oh. I've gotten to it.
We're getting there.
With a very familiar villain.
Get off that page. Get off that page.
The other page told it to me.
That's why I said spoilers. He's coming, because that was the first thing I did was look up with the Word Lord. Well, good. Anything else you guys want to talk about these 4 stories? All right. Well.
I enjoy the anthologies. I know I complain about them, going, oh, I wish it was longer, and I wish it was, and
Well, in this situation, there was, and I think we all agreed, there was only one story that we really felt could have been, solidly more. I think even this last story in the bunch was, just kind of really the perfect length. I wanted to know more about the wordsmith. I wanted more of the character, because it was so developed. It was well developed, but it didn't feel like it had to go on and make this episode lengthier. So yeah, I'm with you. I like the anthologies, and occasionally I think we've both said I would have liked more from this,
right?
But overall, it's kind of nice to sit down in a 2-hour period and get 4 stories.
Yeah, it's a nice change of pace to switch it up from the 2-hour long individual stories.
That sometimes feel padded out.
Yeah.
I just wish that sometimes we'd get, as they're putting these together, and it was like, okay, we've got 4 stories that we're going to do this for, and then maybe they sit down and read the script and you go, there really feels like there should be more here. Let's take this one out.
Yeah.
And we'll throw in another half hour one year so that we can still do the anthology, but we're going to go and do a little bit more with this and see. I don't know. That's just me.
Well, I think you could still do 2-part anthologies too, where you're doing.
Oh yeah,
one 1 hour. We've seen those before, and another 1 hour. Or we've had some that were an hour and a half, and then 30.
Yeah.
So you certainly could do that, and then down the road you've got more stories to do that kind of anthology storytelling too.
Yeah, and I totally get it. I understand Big Finish is trying to, evoke that fondness, that remembrance of this is how Doctor Who worked. It was 4 installments, and that's cool. But you don't have to do that because there was a lot of classic Who that was stretched out too long.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a lot of classic Who that was 3 episodes or 2 episodes too, not always 4. Some were shorter.
So
especially in Sylvester's run.
I really like the hour-long format. I'm just saying.
All right, Sean, what do we got come up on the schedule?
Well, I think there's a book next week, isn't there?
I believe so.
I probably should start reading that.
You haven't started?
No, not yet.
God. I think I'm halfway through it right now.
So that's next week's surprise book.
Surprise.
All right, well, anything else we need to touch on before we close this show?
I don't think so.
That's going to do it for this week. Until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.